Thank you, Romeo, for the brief but essential introduction. Thank you also for the organizers, Adela and Romeo again, and Tirana Art Club, and I'm very glad that Tirana Art Club is doing so well and doing so many interesting projects in collaboration with other institutions. So yes, as Romeo mentioned, I will speak about one exhibition that I had the luck to be the curator of in Ludwig Museum Budapest, and it took place in the beginning of year 2015, so beginning of last year. It was also the last exhibition I did there before leaving the institution for cultural political reasons, because maybe I will just give you a few informations about the Hungarian context in terms of politics and cultural politics. We had a quite radical shift in terms of direction of cultural institutions since, let's say, more essentially since 2013, although it started before and we could feel the effects of the new government before as well. Unfortunately, now the new government in power since 2010 has somehow rediscovered art as a means of propaganda. And what happened in Hungary was really the, let's say, systematic cleansing of all public institutions, should they be theaters, should they be museums, should they be operas, and so on. So what happened is that all the directors who were previously in function at the head of these institutions terminated their mandate, and then the government decided to replace them without any public consultation by good little soldiers of the party. So that is what happened in Ludwig Museum as well. And in, let's say, spring of 2013, a new director came in Ludwig Museum, and the program changed. It turned mainly to traditional means, artistic means, favoring painting, favoring sculpture, and absolutely not as, let's say, cosmopolite or not even, let's say, region-orientated as it was before in such an extent. So the case of Ludwig is absolutely not unique in the Hungarian landscape, unfortunately, which somehow positions the exhibition I made there in a very strange situation, because what we experienced in terms of cultural politics was a kind of soft coming back of aesthetical control, of artistic control, and of visual censorship. So this was one line, and in parallel with that, I could, to my biggest surprise, present the show I will guide you through, which is quite a critical show. And I have to confess that I could only push it in the program because there was a gap in the program. So there was 1.5 months where there were no exhibition planned, and I just proposed this idea, and they were okay, let's do it, why not? But they were more happy to have the gap filled than really a kind of acceptance of the, how to say, conceptual content of the exhibition. So, this exhibition was the first chapter of a new project by Jasmina Cibic. Jasmina Cibic is a Slovenian artist who maybe you heard about her as being the representing Slovenia at the Venice Biennale in 2013. And this is her new project. It's called Spielraum. And the first chapter was presented in Ludwig Museum. Then it traveled to Magalice in Ljubljana, and the third chapter was presented in Belgrade. Then the title of this first chapter was Spielraum, The Nation Loves It. And basically, as you see it in the title, it aimed at deconstructing nation-building strategies. So, the starting point of this proposal was double. One was the title of the exhibition itself, which quoted the writing of one of the first European political satirical writers named Karl Kraus. And in his essay entitled Spielraum from 1912, he vehemently opposed the use of decoration in both language and architecture. And Jasmina connected Kraus with the phenomena of programmatic application of decoration by practically every national or transnational political structure within language and within the built environment. So she aimed to reveal the methodology and the set of tools, as well as the focus to address and process the formal content I will present to you. The second pillar referenced by this exhibition was the source from which the artist decided to draw the formal content. It was the conference of the non-aligned movement, which was, the first conference was held in Belgrade in 1961. And at this occasion, the Yugoslav capital city underwent a reshaping and a restructuration of its architectural vocabulary. So it meant that new forms, new elements of newly built urban environment would constitute the formal, the visual raw material that the artist would work on for this project. So maybe just really few historical facts about the non-aligned movement. So it came to life as a creation of several national leaders who were part of a new generation of political leadership brought to power as the colonial regimes crumbled in the 1960s. And they were claiming for the respect for the rights of people and nations to self-determination, struggle against imperialism, liquidation of colonialism and neo-colonialism. And the movement was declared to be and planned and designed as an alternative third way to the competing US and Soviet-led alliance structures of the Cold War. So these were the two blocs who were shaping the political landscape of the post-Second World War world, and the birth of this new ideological apparatus obviously had to be accompanied by the creation and the development of its own specific language, valid both in the realms of rhetorics and built environment and this will be visible also in the exhibition and how it is structured in different parts. So consequently, the new visual language would most notably hatch in architecture with the help of buildings, of public spaces and urban design, whereas the germination of a new political language, or new spoken language, more precisely, would somehow enroot in the rhetoric of power, which was conveyed by political discourses and official speeches. In terms of audience, this new language, which was equaling the redefinition and redesigning of the environment, was meant to address two sides. First, the daily users, the inhabitants, the citizens of the city of Belgrade, and at the same time, it had to display the image of a new global order to the foreign delegates, the foreign dignitaries that were coming to Belgrade to visit and to attend the conference, which therefore meant the world as well. And in order to achieve this, the new language certainly had to be carefully designed and crafted, somehow universal in its simplicity of forms and globally understandable, internationally accessible through concepts and values. So the exhibition was articulated in three main parts, which were both independent but also constructed into each other and echoing each other in many ways. And mirroring each other's constitutive elements. The first part was examining how the process leading to the elaboration of a new visual language would happen. This visual language that had to endorse a new political formation. So here is the first room that you could enter when visiting the exhibition, and it used some elements of the archive that Yasmina was working on, both personal archive but also archive kept in the National Yugoslav History Museum, which was keeping all the plans and sketches and drawings of these new architectural and urban elements meant for the reshaping of the whole city of Belgrade. And you can really sense the process of how first, I don't know if you see it, it is very, very subtle, but on the wall here, for example, you have these forms which were painted in a very slight difference in terms of shades of black, and obviously being just two-dimensional, so referring to the first ideas and sketches put on paper. And after that, the forms started to get out from the wall, like somehow diving in the exhibition space, starting to be three-dimensional, entering the space on one hand, here and here, but also closing the space, which is very important for the next part, because it somehow announces how this whole scenography of power is also directing the viewer. Here you have a detail, and this led to the second room, which is also part of this first section about elaborating this new visual environment. So here already, still you have these forms on the wall. They're in two dimensions, but they also become these volumes here, these triangles that are movable across the space. So not static elements, but elements that become movable and that were actually activated as props also during the opening with the performance of Hungarian dancers. And on the wall, you see a series of, from here it just looks like black and white photographs of landscapes, but actually they were collages. And this technique, this methodology of collage is also something that was repeated and echoed and mirrored through the whole exhibition in further sections. But what was really important here is that these original photographs were also taken from the archive of the Museum of Yugoslav History, and they are photographs taken by the, let's say, the official photographers that were following Tito during his different trips abroad, obviously official trips, during which he was meeting important dignitaries. So these were occasions when treaties and agreements were signed. But these photographers, who were artists themselves and who had to document these official events, so they were somehow in the servitude of state, also realized these type of photographs, which happened when they turned away from the event, when they focused on the environment rather than on the event, on the scenery rather than on the scene, the political scene that was happening. So here what you see are really landscapes from all over the world, which were scenes of Tito's different visits. And what you see on them are collages that are formed by cutting out pieces of these landscapes themselves and integrating them, collaging them onto these natural landscapes. These forms are also referring to the sketches and plans for the new Belgrade, mirroring the new world order of this non-aligned movement established in 1961. So it was obviously pointing to the fact that these landscapes didn't have just the scenery content, just the natural content, just the content of a natural view, but also a highly politicized content, because they gave somehow the stage for political agreements. And these landscapes really formed, as you see, very, how to say, collaged, very highly identifiable collaged display. And probably you remember from the first slide, or maybe you just noticed it, here on that side, you have the entrance to the second part of the show. Some of you probably recognize the motive that is on this big curtain. It is referencing one of the salons, one of the rooms of the Palace of Federation, which is in Belgrade. I think it is in the Bosnian room or the Bosnian salon, and it symbolically represents Bosnian woods, Bosnian forests. So the link between part one, which was really focusing on the elaboration of this new visual language, from sketches to forms entering the space, to three-dimensional forms movable across the space, not just statically fixed on the wall, but really movable, and the forms that were also repeated in the collage, referring to the politicization of landscapes. This was the very theatrical corridor that was linking this first part with the second part, which focuses on political speeches and which also used this methodology of collage. And what you see here is a very narrow and dark corridor with, on one side, this colorful curtain, which was referencing one of the interior meeting rooms of the Palace of Federation, which, by the way, was completed in 59, so just a few years before the foundation of the non-aligned movement in 61, and so it was one of the main sites for the elaboration of this new architectural and urban language for this new identity. So on one side this curtain, and on the other side some strange icon which is also evoking these geometrical forms, but in a more elaborate way. And now it becomes some kind of, yes, an icon, almost a decorative part, but really the fact that there was only one element lit in a very, how to say, theatrical way, was somehow symbolizing the official endorsement of this new visual language. So this dark corridor, which was forcing almost the visitor from part one to part two, also mirrored somehow the scenography of power used in different official buildings to direct the paths of the public, of the viewer, or of the people, just simply. So this second part, as you see, was a screening. It was 15 minutes video, also presented between these theatrical curtains, and it is a collage of different political speeches taken from mostly the second part of the 20th century, from different countries, different contexts, different parts of the world, from Truman to Tito to Margaret Thatcher to Mitterrand. And these extracts, which I will show you a short trailer of, are both referring to the building, are both referring to the new architectural identity, are both looking in the future, setting a new ground on which a new political formation can be built, can be developed. So obviously it refers and integrates the previous part, which refers to the development of a new visual language through architectural and urban forms, from pavilions to monuments to smaller urban elements, which were, by the way, realized or not. And in terms of the speech itself, it really just beyond the will to somehow draw an average of all the terminology that is used in all nation building strategy. It really referred to the underlying mechanisms and strategies employed by politicians to confirm somehow their rhetoric and their strategy. So I will show you this trailer.
In any case, it's always exciting. Either way, it's always thrilling to be in at the start of a new development. It's always thrilling to be in at the start of a new development. And we are here to mark the first steps of one of the most ambitious building programs and one of the most significant building programs. One of the largest building programs that we've had in our city, that we have made possible in our city for a long time. To see the empty site here as it is now, and to know that we can follow the whole project through. We can follow the whole thing to completion in the future is something very special. To follow that process closely, from plans and drawings to moving earth, bricks and mortar, is an experience that does not come to everyone. And I'm very glad. I'm very thrilled. I'm very thrilled. I'm proud. I'm proud to be here for the breaking of the ground.
So as I told you, this second section is focusing on language, and it explored the way the new political speech is elaborated. And this piece is eponymous of the exhibition title, and we see a woman of no age. She is first moving in an almighty manner the same geometric forms that we saw in the first section, displayed on the ground, exactly as pawns on a chessboard. The next scene, which I just screened, is presenting her rehearsing a text in which she's really weighing every word, measuring their impact and choosing the most adequate combination for the best rhetoric result. So these are really, the different parts of this. It's really a verbal mosaic. It's a verbal collage that were assembled and articulated together exactly as the landscapes were articulated together with the collages. And the figure of the woman, who is unidentifiable, yet she's somehow universal, is standing somehow for the figure of the mother nation. She's letting us catch a glimpse of the new power that is taking shape behind the scenes, and the different parts of this verbal mosaic, as I mentioned to you, are extracts of different political speeches, all of them pronounced in the 20th century, but in different dates, political regimes, and from various politicians engaged in large public and protocolarian architectural projects, which were absolutely meant to define this new visual identity. So the film is structured by also speechless and intervening times. You saw this at the very last of the trailer, at the very end of the trailer, when the figure is performing short and concentrated actions loaded with political significance. So, for example, she manipulates and shows mottos, slogan-like messages like "the nation loves it," "tear down and rebuild," "do not try to satisfy the audience." And the film, which is 15 minutes long, is really structured and divided in different acts, which really conveys the impression that it is a carefully constructed theater piece. In the middle of the film, the scene of the figure playing the architectural forms here as musical instruments is obviously further clear reference to the perfectly orchestrated articulation of visuality and verbality. And so the video piece is really willing to articulate sculptural and decorative elements installed throughout the spaces. And they are activating them as somehow political agents of political rhetoric at the hand of a single character, and enhancing the impact of a political message that is turned universal. Obviously, here the use of English is logical. The design of the dresses that this woman wears, or maybe uniforms, are also mirroring the different visual elements and sets that are visible both in the film and the exhibition. On the first one, the already familiar geometric icon-like form that was presented in the corridor leading from part 1 to part 2, is marking the birth of the new visual language and is endlessly repeated, while the second one bears the pattern here of the curtains that are dividing the screening from the other spaces, the other parts of the show. This pattern, I mentioned it, is reproducing the original motif from a tapestry designed for a meeting room inside the Palace of Federation in Belgrade, and bringing this motif both in the film and in the exhibition. By bringing this motif, Yasmina is unveiling another level of her focus and approach of the new visual and the verbal language. So not only does she show how this new rhetoric is applied outside, meaning in public spaces, but she's also referring to the insides, the interiors of power, to the matrix where this new language is elaborated, and which is visible only to a few. The third section, which you see here, acted as a synthesis of the first and second part, a synthesis of the visual language and rhetoric system of the two previous segments. It addressed both the interior and exterior backdrops of power, as well as its scenographic spectacle, and was manifest as two large-scale artworks. The first one was this curtain that I mentioned to you. This is the original one, which was created for the Palace of Federation. So this is a picture from the interior of the Palace of Federation. And the second one was this huge but fictitious landscape. It was a wallpaper mural which was depicting a fictional composite landscape assembled from these various photographs or photographic documents of Tito's political meetings. And it was showcasing territories really ranging from Africa, Europe, America, and Asia. And between these two pieces, weaved in the landscape here at the bottom, you can see these kind of political messages that are also referring the short messages or mottos pronounced in the video. And they were presented like in randomly scattered scrolls. And they were also demonstrating what we've been seeing in the first section with the collaged landscapes, meaning the tautological politicization of spaces that each birth of visual and rhetoric discourse requires. Then what you see dispersed in the space are repetitions, echoes, and mirrorings of the forms that we've already seen. And here it was also questioning the role of the viewer, how much this new political identity is meant just for a passive viewer, or can the viewer interact with it? Can it use it? Can the viewer use it somehow? So it somehow pointed to the role of the viewer, the role of the people, the role of the public. And actually, what we also try to do as an experiment is a fourth side section in the show. Yeah, these are just images. Fourth side section of the show, which was somehow to question how to link this exhibition, its content, its references to the Hungarian context, because obviously it was basing itself on the non-aligned movement, which was founded in Yugoslavia, the whole rebranding of the city of Belgrade, but how to connect it with Hungary. Is there any building which can be compared to the Palace of Federation, which has such a symbolic content as the Palace of Federation in Hungary? And actually there is none. And thinking together with Yasmina, we figured out that actually the most representative element through which Hungary is also positioning itself abroad is a specific landscape. These are the big flatlands of the eastern and southern part of Hungary, really connected to this somehow peasant romanticism of representing somehow the nomadic soul of the Hungarian people, with these hordes of wild horses and incredibly huge skies and romantic sunsets and so on. And it was really a motive that has been recurring in historical Hungarian painting for centuries, and also in the 20th century. So somehow we decided to use that as a point of departure, and to deconstruct, to dissect that. So these are just a few examples of these flatlands featured in paintings, and you can see that it's always a very dramatic representation of the sky. The sky is enormous, the earth below is tiny, and the man, the animals are really small, crushed by the immensity of this huge and dangerous sky. So Jasmina developed a series of marbles that was addressing this motive. It is also important in the context of Ludwig Museum, the use of marble, and in the context of any, let's say, place of power, as marble is usually referred at and used as a noble material, so demonstrating authority, demonstrating power. In Ludwig Museum, there are a lot of surfaces on which there was marble. One of the main cultural institutions in Hungary, the Hungarian National Gallery, which was formerly a palace built by the Habsburgs, was totally reconstructed from the inside using red marble during communism. So it had a very specific reference to this, use of official materials in terms of political authority and the symbol of power. And what Jasmina did here is that she reproduced this sky element, which is really this cultural landscape, landscapes which symbolizes the Hungarian deeply rooted identity in the land, and left the lower part, the support, bare. But in the drawing as well of the marble, the lines of the marble, obviously graphically, somehow can refer to mountains or lines in the ground and so on. But she really extracted this cultural symbol of the huge dramatic sky and applied it on this really favored material, stone, which is marble, and that has been used in the building itself. So, in conclusion, as you saw, the project really aimed at mapping, deconstructing and dissecting the system, the schematics, the mechanisms that were used in socialist Yugoslavia and made total and universal. She also, Jasmina also unveiled that all new political construction and new world order takes shape the same way. You can identify the same traits, the same trends, the same tools, the same mechanisms. And somehow the translation and the fact that the first chapter was presented in Hungary, while the two consequent chapters were presented in the former territory of Yugoslavia, so Ljubljana and Belgrade, made it quite a challenge to connect it with the local scene and the local context. But somehow the situation and also cultural, political, actual situation was provided a very interesting ground to develop that. Thank you.